Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Pan Future Society podcast. I'm your host, Sean, and today is Friday, April 21st, 2017. Doing the show a day earlier than normal. Honestly, really like 16 hours earlier than normal. Tomorrow is the March for Science. I hope you're going to a march if there is one in your location, if you can't make it all the way to Washington, D.C. to do so. Despite any problems or misgivings that have been raised about the march itself, I do think it is very important. Science is the best tool we have for understanding the way the world really is, and understanding the world leads us to solutions to problems which may seem impossible to fix. So go march, follow it online. If you are following me on Twitter, I'm going to be posting some photos, I'm sure, and tweeting things, and hopefully doing some live video. I'm also doing this show a little early because I want to hopefully get some interviews with people on the scene, and then maybe have a special episode about the march following up on later on Saturday or Sunday, possibly. Who knows? Anyway, in order to also give you something this week at sort of the normal time for the show, I'm doing another all-news show. I've done one of these before, and the past couple of weeks, there's been a lot of news that I have not covered in some way or other, and hopefully if I've got some things that you haven't heard about, you can go check them out. And now on with the news. Your first quick news item today, a robot suit that may help people learn to walk again. Connor Walsh and his laboratory at Harvard University are working on in the field of soft robotics. Soft robotics is exactly what it says. It's robots that are soft. And in this particular case, we're talking about exosuits. Exosuits, you would often think of something like Iron Man's suit or the large industrial lifter that Ripley uses at the end of the Aliens film. In this case, we're talking about robots that are basically designed to look like clothing and are disguised. They're incorporating systems into shirts and pants and all kinds of different things to assist people, particularly like people who have suffered a stroke. And these different robotic clothing items will help them move. And I think this is an interesting idea. Learning to do something again after a serious accident can be very frustrating. And it can also be challenging just to get to physical therapy, go to wherever you have to go all the time, several times a week or every day or something like that. What if you could just wear something all the time that helped you learn to walk again? I suppose in the long run, this would also be for people who can't walk at all. Rather than just a therapeutic thing that they eventually don't need, it could be something that you wear all the time. And that would also help sort of get back to normal life. There are other exoskeleton designs and things that do help people walk, but they're a bit cumbersome right now. So it would be cool to see things that are as sort of unobtrusive to your own life as contacts or glasses or modern hearing aids can be. Second news item for this week, Elon Musk is at it again. He has founded a new company called Neurallink Corporation, and this company will aim to merge computers with brains so that people could eventually perhaps engage in a sort of telepathy. All right, that sounds a little crazy, but let's back that up through the steps where we might get there. Initially, this company is researching tiny brain electrodes that would be used to fight brain conditions and neurological conditions, but could later also help people interface with machines. I think you would see this first to be a new treatment for epilepsy, or to be a new way of controlling a prosthetic arm and that sort of thing. Now, of course, Musk is not the only person to be interested in these things or to be researching these things. There are a lot of other people doing it. But the interesting thing about his approach to everything that he's done, primarily through Tesla and SpaceX and now Neuralink, is that instead of just researching at a university, which is absolutely necessary and great if you can get the grants to do so, sort of maybe the best thing for him is just bypassing that grant maze altogether and starting a company that is sets out to do these things. Ultimately, they're companies that are meant to make a profit. But I guess that's the thing, some people have, different superpowers, and Elon Musk's superpower is money, primarily, and also a vision to stretch our imagination into the future. Again, I would sort of reiterate, I know a lot of people read about what he does or any futurist kind of idea, and they just think it's crazy, and it's, we should fix other problems first or something like that. But this kind of research, you want to reach for something that can't be done, and what you get out of it is going to be useful. Maybe ultimately Neuralink has the idea of people mentally sending pictures to each other. That's one thing that it might be able to do. Maybe we'll never be able to do that. But if this speeds up the research into allowing someone with a prosthetic arm to control it with their thoughts the way they control their other real arm, that is certainly worth every effort, even if the sort of pie in the sky, giant, dreamy goal never gets attained. The steps that you have to go through to get there are also laudable and useful goals. So Elon Musk at it again with Neuralink Corporation. The third item of news this week: scientists have created a new superfluid in a lab with a negative mass. To briefly try to sum up, a superfluid is a fluid with zero viscosity, and therefore it flows without loss of kinetic energy. It would be like if you stir it, it will rotate forever. It will not slow down. Even a glass of water or whatever, if you stir it, there is still friction in there and it eventually slows the water down. In a superfluid, that does not happen. There are isotopes of helium that will act as superfluids when cooled to cryogenic temperatures. There are also exotic states of matter believed to exist in stars like neutron stars, and some Bose-Einstein condensates are also superfluids. This one is a type of Bose-Einstein condensate, and this negative mass means that if you push it to the right, it accelerates to the left. Now, that is seemingly completely at odds with one of the very fundamental laws of physics, Newton's second law of motion, stating that if you push an object, it accelerates away from you. But in this negative mass condition and this particular properties of this superfluid, it goes the other way. Now, I will link to some articles here because I cannot pretend entirely to understand this, but this is something that is not entirely unexpected by the people who worked on this, which were, let me find them here, Han Pu and his team at Rice University. It's been a theorized thing. It's been something they thought were at super cool neutron star cores. And so it's not entirely unexpected that they've seemed to have violated the laws of physics. But I will link to this, and like I will to all the things, because you should probably read it for yourself to get a better understanding than I am able to give you. But fascinating to me nonetheless, this new thing created in a lab that seems to violate the laws of physics. And now, it came from outer space. Several items of space news interest this week. A new exoplanet discovered, LHS 1140b, located in the liquid water habitable zone surrounding its host star. The star is a red dwarf. The planet is about 6.5 times the mass of the Earth. And this one is also of interest not only because it is in this habitable zone, but it also appears to have some sort of viable atmosphere that they were able to detect some evidence for. This is very cool. It's 39 light years away. We can't go there now, but hey, who cares? It's out there. This was kind of all over the place, so you probably heard about it. I wanted to bring it up in part just as an illustration of how terrible science journalism can be. So many outlets, particularly non-science-based outlets, reported this as, we found life on another planet, or we found a planet that will have life on it. I don't know. That's not what this is about at all. It's fascinating. It's Earth-like. Out of all the Earth-like worlds we've found so far, it may be the most viable one for life. But that's a kind of a bar that's set pretty low right now, partly because we just don't know much. So if you see, science news on the nightly news or on CNN or something online, always take it with a grain of salt and look for those sources from, phys.org or Universe Today or something like that, because that'll give you a better picture of the reality of the story and hopefully not overhype it too much. But that planet is out there and it's very cool, and we just keep adding to the list of these places that potentially could support some form of life. Continuing in the space news and potential life in space news, it's possible that in exploring other worlds for life, we'll need to get really good at building submarines. Some new research hypothesizes that planets with life full of land masses could be actually rare, and water worlds might be the norm. Dr. Fergus Simpson of the Institute of Cosmos Scientists at the University of Barcelona has put out this new research using something called Bayesian statistics or Bayesian probability. In a nutshell, if we find 10 exoplanets and 7 of them have significant land masses, we think there's a 70% chance that other exoplanets would probably be very similar. If we find 100 exoplanets and 70 of them have significant land masses, we get even more confident in our 70% prediction. However, at this point, even though we've discovered lots of exoplanets, we don't know if they have land masses or not. Even the most Earth-like ones that we know of, we don't know what's there. However, using some Bayesian logic, you can assign a statistics and probability to something that we do know. And we do know that the Earth is currently covered by a little more than 70% water, and it's only about 30% land masses. So we might just have just some weird, just right balance of land and water for things to work out. But it's probably also not unreasonable in a statistical sense to think that if we're 70% covered in water, other planets are at least that covered, maybe more. So it's possible that watery worlds are the norm out there, and it gives us just another angle to look at things. And I wonder, it's not mentioned in the article here, but given that we're also considering the possibility of life or the building blocks of life in our own solar system on moons like Enceladus and Europa, which are also, we think they may be able to support life in some way because of their water or their liquid of some kind content, not because they have land masses that animals can live on. So an interesting look at what we might be looking for out there, and maybe even another element of the Fermi paradox, wondering, or the Drake equation, wondering, trying to factor in where are all the aliens if we are not alone. If water worlds are more the norm for planets that do have life, perhaps it's not possible for that life to develop something that becomes spacefaring or shoots radio waves out into the universe. But there you have it, more speculation based on logic and science about the possibility of life elsewhere in the universe. The final news item for this week, and continuing to be deep in outer space, observations of an accretion disk around a young star have been made, and this is the first time that has actually happened. The Nebula Hypothesis states that stars and planets were formed from a giant cloud of dust and gas. After undergoing gravitational interactions, some of that collapses at the center, which creates the star, and the remaining matter, some of it falls into the star, and other matter eventually coalesces into the planets. After the star forms, a lot of this other stuff is supposed to form a disk around the star. This is called the accretion disk, and over time, that disk becomes planets and other stuff that is orbiting the star. However, until now, the Nebula Hypothesis was just a hypothesis. It did not have direct observation to support it, such as we have now. A joint U.S. and Taiwan effort using the Atacama Large Millimeter Submillimeter Array has made observations of a star known as HH212, and the star is very young by star standards, about 40,000 years old. It is in the constellation of Orion, about 1,300 light years away. The star system has been noted before for its powerful bipolar jet, a flow of ionized gas from the poles of this star. And they speculate that this flow of ionized gas causes the matter to accrete more efficiently in the disk around the star. Because of this star's age and position relative to Earth, it has been the popular target for astronomers in the past. But now, using some modern tools, they're just the right tools, I suppose, we have been able to make observations directly looking at the disk that is formed around the star. Previous observations had a resolution of 200 astronomical units, which means that astronomers could only get a hint of a dusty disk around the star. but it was really hard to tell what was going on. But with the ALMA telescope's resolution of 8 astronomical units, 25 times better than before, the research team was not only able to detect the accretion disk, but also to spatially resolve its dust emissions at the sub-millimeter wavelength. All that just kind of means that they were able to see what kind of stuff was in the dust. They were able to observe that the disk has a radius of roughly 60 astronomical units, which is only a little bit bigger than the distance from our sun to the edge of the Kuiper belt. They were also able to determine that the disk was comprised of silicate materials, iron, and other interstellar matter, and had a prominent dark layer stuck between 2 brighter layers, and it seems that the dark layer was due mostly to lower temperatures in that layer. This is great news, not only because this is the first time such detailed observations have been made of an accretion disk, but this gives us an opportunity to continue to observe this star going forward into the future and get more and more information about how stellar systems actually form. And that's the news for this week. And there you have it. That is the show for this week. A quick dose of bunch of news stuff that's been going on. And tomorrow I will be going to my local March for Science here in Eugene, Oregon. I hope you are able to do something for this event as well. If you're around on your computer or your smartphone, come find me on Twitter. It is PanFutureCast on Twitter. And I will be tweeting and hopefully doing some live video. And I will see if I can grab some interviews while I'm there, and I will throw those into a show, probably sort of a special edition show between this week and next week. And, of course, thank you for joining me. I have to say, it looks like things are continuing to grow for the show. I get download statistics, somewhat limited ones, but I at least get to know how many downloads have been made. And very recently, they've been climbing steadily. I'm not really sure what's happening. Maybe podcasts hit a critical mass of listeners or numbers of shows or something, but whatever you people are doing out there is wonderful. Keep doing it. Spread the word, share the show with your friends and family, and tell them about it, and come visit the show online at panfuture.org. You can link to places to find the show, the Facebook and the Twitter thing there, and I am grateful to have you here with me every week. I will talk to you again in the future.